5 is better than 7.
Good morning. Bring you greetings from the city of Crisfield and citizens. Someone told me a long time ago when you're going to give a presentation, tell people what you're going to say, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So I'm going to focus on those 3 principles this morning. The city of Crisfield, about 2,750 residents, spread across about 50% Caucasian, 48% African American, and 2% Spanish, has been going through a tough economic time over the last number of years. Many small towns go through the same thing. But on October the 29th, on a Monday, we got devastated. I have a tendency to get a little emotional, and I'll try not to do that this morning. I'll probably be the only Methodist to address this conference, by the way.
That's for sure.
John Wesley continues to haunt us. But what happened to us, I can remember for 3 or 4 days I had been going to emergency management meetings and trying to prepare a small town for what we thought was an impending storm. And the folks in Crisfield, much like your folks up here in St. Michael's and many of your islands that set out on the Chesapeake, we're old salts. We're used to storms, we're used to nor'easters and hurricanes and the rest, but this particular storm kind of caught us with surprise. I left the meeting, the emergency management meeting that morning at 10 o'clock, and was told that I was going to experience 52-mile-an-hour winds, 1 to 3 foot storm surge, and drove from Princess Anne to Crisfield about 20 minutes. When I arrived in Crisfield at about 11:30, I found I couldn't go anywhere in my car. That didn't indicate it was 1 to 3 foot storm surge. By 12 o'clock, we had a 3 to 5 foot storm surge. We had winds in excess of 80 miles an hour. And within 2 hours, the entire community was inundated. I guess the reason I get emotional is because I think for the first time in your life, you all of a sudden come to the realization that you're responsible for the lives of 3,000 people, plus another 1,500 in the outskirts of the community. And it bears down on you quickly. We were totally washed away from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon until about 8 o'clock that night. It hit high tide. The tide didn't really go out, but thankfully by 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, the wind started to shift. We lost much of our tree population. I've never seen that many 100-year oaks come down in one storm in my life. And I live approximately a mile from the water, and I had 1.5 foot of water in my garage, 1.5 foot or a flooded basement, and up to the second step on my house. I'm 72 years old, and I've lived in Crisfield, born and raised, but I spent 25 years in Washington, but I've never seen that much water. Never seen any water in my yard, and never seen that much water. Coming out of that storm, we were blessed to have, contrary to what you might hear in the press, we were blessed to have the National Guard, State Police, Department of Natural Resources, swift water teams from probably 5 or 6 states. The state of Maryland really did a phenomenal job and brought us through that first day. At the end of that day, the Red Cross showed up and kind of fed Crisfield for the next 24 hours. It was a bad experience. And what has resulted from that is about 30% of our housing stock is not down on the ground like you see in New Jersey. We got it a different way. About 30% of our housing stock is totally hollow, meaning there's no one living in those houses. You can't live in them. The mold, the problems that you have with salt water and mud when it rolls into a community and pretty well divests the entire community. So as we go forward, the state, the federal government with FEMA, SBA, and the other organizations have come in and helped as much as they possibly could. Private insurance is paid off slowly on flood insurance. But what we're left with now is we're left with the Baptists, the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Episcopalians, and the Mennonites. And they're the ones that are there helping to put the community back together. And the donations that we've received for building supplies is making it possible for them to do their work. Extremely poor population. Average income's less than $20,000 a year. And we probably have whole sections of the community with public housing that the income is less than 10. It's unbelievable. Retiring out of Washington, D.C., even being a native of Crisfield, I found it hard to understand how a community survives. Many times people come into the community and ask me, they look around and they say, how does this place survive? And as a mayor, I look at them and say, I really don't know. So, enough emotion. We appreciate all that you've done and all that we hope you will do. And again, about 30% of our housing stock is damaged. I think in condemnations, we're probably up to a good 15%, and we probably removed between 5 and 10% of the houses already. Businesses we've lost, you can imagine a small town, you might have 20 businesses, we've probably lost 7 or 8, many of them forever. They'll never come back. A marginal operation, once it's washed away, doesn't usually come back. And the hardest part of the story that I'll end with is that, Jersey will be back in 3 years. Crisfield will probably be back in 5, if we can make it. The economic engine is not there. The push by the economy is not there. And so the faith-based organizations will be the organizations that put Crisfield back on the map. And I thank you.